days before you actually left.
If you've been watching my channel at any point in its 16-year history, chances are you've come across one of my many SpongeBob videos before. And I often get asked, why do I make so many videos about him? The answer is so simple. No, it's not a conspiracy to repopulate the lost media community, and no, it's not to purposely take eyes away from content that others deem more valuable. It's literally because I like SpongeBob, a lot. If you're around my age, then you probably grew up with him. And naturally, given my love for SpongeBob, combined with that lost content, I tend to gravitate towards that area more than any other series. In today's episode, we have more than just lost content to discuss, which also includes some found stuff, with help from a certain SpongeBob fan who has become an oracle of sorts for Nickelodeon collecting and preservation. So let's jump into the video with the first topic, one that is more based in early SpongeBob culture that I would love to see. The first topic I'd like to discuss takes us to a place that very few people have ever seen before, and that's to employee content. In previous videos, we've talked about this to varying degrees, but now we're going to revisit one of them in more depth, one that mentions a piece of SpongeBob lost media in plain sight. Back in September 2023, I ended up acquiring a Nickelodeon yearbook from an employee of the studio who helped put it together. This was from 1998, before SpongeBob premiered, but included with it was an employee newsletter from the year 2000, early on in the series' history. While the yearbook itself had a lot of behind-the-scenes photos and information the general public would have never seen otherwise, the newsletter was interesting for a lot of different reasons. It was here where we heard remarks from employees about the current state of programming and how certain series were doing, in addition to anticipation for shows that had yet to premiere. But specifically in the SpongeBob section, the headline was not really about the show, and instead, an appearance the character made at an event. During the Independence Day celebrations at the 4th of July Cayucos Parade, Steven Hillenburg's friend, Tom Craig, built an entire float dedicated to SpongeBob. It was made primarily from recycled boogie boards and even featured two bands, including Tom's. Apparently, Tom builds floats like this every year for the parade, and the blurb states that the float was a fantastic success. But unfortunately, there is no picture included of what this looks like, and no details about it, besides the fact that it used those boogie boards, and was large enough to hold bands performing. While the idea of an undocumented SpongeBob float is cool enough, the intrigue that it was made of boogie boards makes me want to see it even more. Not to mention, Steven Hillenburg was a big fan of crafting sculptures, having shown off a couple in interviews he's done, so it would be really cool to archive a photo of this particular piece for the fans. But as you could have expected from something as local as this, and as old as this, there is no readily available image of the float online. Considering this was the year 2000, before phone cameras and wide online accessibility existed, I'm not surprised it was never uploaded by a fan or parade viewer. It was early on in SpongeBob's history too, so he wasn't as popular as he would eventually become. But that's not to say that photos of this would not exist at all. It's really likely Nickelodeon crew had seen it, or taken photos that are in a personal album, or else this blurb wouldn't even be here. But it's also fairly likely Tom Craig has photos, since he's the one who made it. Well, I didn't know if Tom was someone who would be easy to find online, or if he was a close friend that didn't have any social media accounts. Thankfully, I was able to find him very easily, with references to float building and Cayucos on his profile, so we know this is the right guy. As of the making of this video, he has not responded to my message asking about a photo of the float, but I'm sure within time we'll get an answer on this, whether he has one or not. But if he doesn't have a photo, then the search would take on another whole level. But so far it feels like it's within reach, and if he shares it with me, I'll be sure to share it with all of you. I have a little surprise for the next topic of the video, because it's actually a piece of found media, one that I, nor anyone else outside of the production team has ever seen. In fact, I don't think this has ever even been spoken about online before. But while I'm bringing this piece of found media to you, I'm actually not the one who found it, and the person who did is much more qualified to talk about it than I am. Camera flip.
Welcome to the Cavern, L Supersonic Q and audience. Thank you so much for having me. It is an honor, and I have something very, very fun to share with you. It is a piece of lost media that I think would have gone on to be one of the most iconic memories for 2000 Nickelodeon fans. And with this, it seems like we were just this close to it happening. And that is a cut from the iconic episode of Fairly Odd Parents, Channel Chasers. An episode where you see Timmy kind of go through the television world and go in between multiple different parodies of iconic television shows. You get to see him in a parody Scooby-Doo, a parody Rugrats, and one that you probably don't remember and exists in this storyboard is a parody of SpongeBob. But before I show you the crazy Fairly Odd Parents SpongeBob crossover, I do want to explain how I found it briefly, just because I feel like it adds so much to the history of this as lost media, and also kind of gives you an idea of how close this really was to maybe never being discovered or put out there. So if you're unfamiliar with my channel, what I do is look for rare and obscure SpongeBob or Nickelodeon memorabilia. I'm very fortunate to live here in Southern California, which is probably the only reason why I was able to even stumble upon something like this. But often some of the best stuff I find out at thrift stores or the flea market. I've done several videos of me going out to the flea markets, finding all types of fun and obscure Nickelodeon products that I can bring right back here into my collection room and my vault, the Cavern. But one of these days while I was at the flea market, two of my friends that I've made along the way in these journeys, Curtis and Blake, they were going through a truck when they found this container here, which not only included this Fairly Odd Parents storyboard that I just talked about, but a bunch of different Danny Phantom storyboards as well. And much of the stuff that's at these flea markets are usually found from storage lockers that were either abandoned or just not paid for. And then the storage company will auction that stuff off so different vendors can come pick it up and sell it however they wish. If nobody picks it up, they throw all the stuff out. And if somebody does pick it up, there's still always that chance that if they don't really recognize it being valuable or it being all just paper, they might even just throw it out. But luckily enough, the guy did bring it to the flea market, and Curtis and Blake discovered this bin here. And me being kind of the Nickelodeon guy, they were like, hey, are you interested in this? And of course I was interested in it, and we were able to work out a deal. I'm so grateful that they did, so big shout out to them. But once I made the deal with them, I didn't really know what it was. I did know they were Xerox prints of the storyboards that they were using, most likely in the Nickelodeon studio here in Southern California. But I didn't know if they were put out online or ready to be available or were leaked. I just knew they were cool and I was interested in them. But once I started going through some of the Danny Phantom ones, I did notice again that they were pitch boards. And with the pitch boards, you get to see a lot of cut content that's all labeled as cut with a stamp above it that says cut. So that sprang me into action to go through all of these as a huge Nickelodeon fan and to see what stuff from these episodes was cut and also why it may have been cut. And much of it I think is for time's sake, but I had to know what stuff was available, and that's what led me to the discovery here in Channel Chasers. As I was scanning through it, I spotted this character that looks remarkably familiar. He stood out pretty clearly for me as a SpongeBob fan. So I was like, huh? I've watched Channel Chasers countless times. I know that there's no scene with a character like that. So I immediately threw my Channel Chaser disc on TV and had to look through it, and I was able to find that scene where this would have been in the episode, and lo and behold, this was not there. And there's about 70 pages that fill in this whole story, so I'm trying to summarize as best as I can. But it starts off with a pirate dressed salesman that kind of looks like Patchy the Pirate, if you ask me, who asks you, are you ready, kids? You see a group of kids saying, aye, aye, salesman, with one kid that looks remarkably like SpongeBob already, except for instead of buck teeth, he's missing a tooth. That itself is strange. It pans to the kids. Of course, they're kind of poking fun at SpongeBob, being that's what Timmy did throughout the entire episode with all of the show. And the kids begin to sing, whose toys, shirts, and figures are all that you see, kind of teasing at the fact that how big SpongeBob's merchandise was during this time period. And then it has the SpongeBob fill-in character, which is Timmy, as Scrub Brush Triangular Pants. And you even get to see the same title card with the Scrub Brush Triangular Pants getting pulled by a piece of merchandise, much like the boatmobile in the intro for SpongeBob. Once the episode begins, you actually see Scrub Brush in a very familiar location, being the Krusty Krab. In this parody, it's like a picnic basket, I would say, but very obviously the clouds and all, the muffler, bikini bottom houses definitely set the tone. You get to see him cooking up a shrimp patty, and you also get to see the entrance of Octoturd. And you also get to see Cosmo and Wanda as Patrick Star and also Mrs. Puff. But then Timmy begins to explain to Octoturd that he's trying to find his way to Mao Hao Mushi, which gets interrupted by the Mr. Krabs character, Mr. Shrimp, essentially leading Octoturd back to his register, where we then get to see a fish version of Vicky, who has now entered the episode as well. And I will say, she looks so good in the bikini bottom fashion. Like, she looks like an actual incidental. And you even get to see some other fish incidentals in the background that look very much like the regular fish from Bikini Bottom. Once she realizes Timmy's there, she tries to make an escape for it by going back into the TV. But in order to slow Timmy down, she creates a distraction by throwing chum all around the Krusty Krab restaurant, which creates a shark frenzy, and sharks pull up on the Krusty Krab and start eating the freaking customers. This guy literally has a bite taken out of his head. And then she jumps back into the TV, and Octoturd actually grabs the remote and helps Timmy get into the TV as well, so he can continue on to the next channel. And there's a lot of stuff in between that and a lot of stuff after that, but that's essentially the summary of what happens within it. An incredible, strange thing that was this close to being a real thing, and I don't know why it wasn't. I would love to know why that was cut. I could see some digs taken at SpongeBob, but like I said, he did that with all of the shows that he went into. So I'm so interested as to what was the reason exactly it was cut, but just knowing that that was a possibility just fills my heart with joy. And I felt like I couldn't just keep this possibility here in this paper. I had to share it with all of you guys. So thank you for giving me that opportunity, L Supersonic Q. I'll let you carry on, and hopefully I can see you later on in this video.
When you were a kid, I bet a lot of us always imagined being able to meet or talk to our favorite cartoon characters. The most common way of meeting characters in real life was accomplished by mascots, showing up at fairs or events, which I remember doing for SpongeBob as well. But Nickelodeon got even more creative in the 2000s, when they began a promotional campaign that had characters calling you over the phone. This was named Nickelodeon Calls You, and the archived commercial showing the service uses SpongeBob to demonstrate how it works. Basically, you'd go to the Nickelodeon website, select the type of message you want spoken, and then schedule the time for it to be sent out. Then, your real-life phone will ring, and on the other end is SpongeBob, making it seem like he's actually talking to you. In the commercial, we can see 3 options listed for the type of call, including Wake Up, Happy Birthday, and Get Well Soon. We can hear snippets of the calls themselves in the commercial too, but nothing beyond that. For the most part, these calls and the promotion itself didn't really catch the attention of anyone until June 2023, when Pastel Sucks made a thread about them in the Lost Media Wiki forums, following their inclusion in a Defunct Land video. The ones that were mentioned in the video, however, came from the Nickelodeon resorts. Following a more thorough search, Pastel Sucks found a couple archived pages, including one that further described the calling process and the URLs that were used to host the actual service from a company called Uvox Networks. Unfortunately, upon contacting this company, they claim they are not able to share any more content. But we did get some more information from the Wayback Machine about the service, which is huge for the search. Uvox Network's old website had options of SpongeBob calls, which included holiday and seasonal greetings, as well as congratulations. So you might be asking yourself at this point, if there were so many different types of messages made, can any of them be heard? Well, the answer to that question is yes, they can. Because a SoundCloud based out of Orlando called Attractions uploaded a huge variety of these calls, even from characters outside of Nickelodeon. I guess this was a pretty popular fad back then. And within the mix contains the SpongeBob birthday message. 2 different ones, in fact. The first birthday message is the one that was clipped in the 2005 commercial, so now that one is found. But I don't know at what other point the second one was made. Apparently Nickelodeon still provides this service, so they were probably just changed and updated over the years. Pastel Sucks contacted this account as well, but they confirmed to not be in possession of anything else, which leaves the remaining 5 still missing in full. But if you remember back to the commercial, there were only 3 options listed, and the birthday clip matches up to the one that Attractions uploaded. So it's speculated that the Nickelodeon resort calls actually reused the same ones from the website, so there aren't really 2 different sets to find, with the exception of whatever that second birthday one is. That might have gone to a different set, but it's unknown. With information about their release being fairly vague, it's hard to tell how much they evolved. But with more awareness for this topic, more could come forward, so we'll have to keep an eye on this search and see if anything new comes up. We've talked about a lot of lost merchandise on the channel before, but rarely did it involve cartoon-related series. Most of the time, we discussed video game items, so that leaves a lot of unexplored territory for us to discover. And in fact, with Comfort Cartoons being such a big Nickelodeon collector, it makes documenting this lost merchandise so much easier. I think we should pay him another visit and discover some lost SpongeBob merchandise. Hey Comfort Cartoons, we're heading back to the cavern.
A few moments later.
So welcome back to the cavern. Believe it or not, there is a lot of lost or seemingly non-existent SpongeBob and Nickelodeon merch out there. But these are some of my favorites just because of the fact that we get clear images of them through some of the other products that exist. One of my favorite ones, and is a holy grail for me, is what I like to call the pink eyelash SpongeBob. And it actually comes from one of the earliest SpongeBob products, which is this right here, the squeezable talking SpongeBob. This was released in early 2000, which makes it within the first year SpongeBob was even out. But on the back of that box, it actually shows you a glam image of a product that they did release down the line, which is the squirting SpongeBob. And you can see the image of the back. If you look at it closely, it's designed for one, it's a very crude shape, but not just that, for whatever reason, he has pink eyelashes. But if it was just the pink eyelashes, I would have said maybe it's just like a coloring issue in the photo. But they did release the squirting SpongeBob, which is this right here, and you can see this one is much different from that early product that they had featured on the back of this box. So I can only presume that was like an early, almost prototype of what the squirting Bob was supposed to look like. But being that these are some of the earliest products to ever come out for SpongeBob, them in themselves are pretty notable pieces in the SpongeBob collecting fandom. So being able to discover would be one thing, but just knowing that there's this pink eyelash SpongeBob, either prototype or maybe very even short printed figure out there, has always made me so curious on if it will ever be discovered. It could be out there in some warehouse. One of the people at Mattel could have it in a container somewhere in their garage. We'll never really know, but man, would it be cool to find that thing. So the next item here comes from another early SpongeBob product, and it's an example where this lost item, possibly a prototype or early version of the product, is displayed right on the back of the box. This is the eye-popping SpongeBob, and you can see his eyes are very creepy. They kind of just stare into your soul, but they're designed in such a way to where when you squeeze the figure, his eyes pop out of his head to kind of give it that cartoony feel, and he also has some audio bites that you can hear from Tom Kenny. But on the back of the box, it showcases a completely different looking product. I haven't quite come up with a name for it yet, and it's this one right here, and it is the eye-popping SpongeBob. For the most part, it's pretty much the same, but the notable things about it is you can see clear speaker holes on the bottom of his body where the tie and the collar of his square pants are, and for sure the most obvious part of it is that his eyes have these really thick bezels around them, kind of casing in his eyes. And this one's by Mattel too, so I think in just a rush to try to get these products out, and a lot of the glam shots, they use early iterations of the products, but knowing that they exist and they're possibly out there is the type of thing that just keeps me hunting every single day, looking online, going to my flea markets, garage sales, just hoping one day I stumble upon what I will call White Socket SpongeBob and can add him to the collection to preserve him as an early form of this eye-poppin' SpongeBob. Next up is a SpongeBob Squirts Ball. This is done by Nick Sports, which had a line of a few different SpongeBob and Nickelodeon related like sports activity products. And as you can see clearly, this is the SpongeBob ball, and you can see displayed back here, it has the SpongeBob ball as well as a very cool Patrick ball. And you can see right next to it, it says coming soon. But as far as I know, in my entire time collecting, I have never seen this Patrick ball come up. I've never seen an image of it. I've never seen it in anybody's collection, never even seen as much of an image besides this one right here. But contrary to some of the other stuff that we showcased, this one looks like it's very much a final product. So I'm not sure why they didn't just release it alongside this one, or if this one didn't perform to the degree they were hoping for, so they just scrapped the Patrick idea. But we do know there's at least one out there, so that is another holy grail item, is the Squirts Patrick. Next up is from a special that I vividly remember, and I believe it was was considered lost media for a long time, and that was a special event for the Friend or Foe SpongeBob episode. It is an event that took place at the Nickelodeon Family Suites and Hotel, where Patchy the Pirate actually hosted a competition between two different teams of kids, being Team Plankton and Team Crab, kind of to play into the Crabs versus Plankton aspect of the Friend or Foe episode had. I believe there is some footage of this event that was found, and during that competition you were able to go online and vote for whether you were either Team Plankton or Team Crab, and depending on which one you voted for, you had a chance to be entered into a sweepstake to win a Team Plankton or a Team Crabs t-shirt, just like the ones the kids were wearing in the event special. And supposedly they were randomly sent out to people that participated in that online event, and for years there was not even pictures of these shirts that existed or that they had ever existed. But in the last years we've been able to find at least pictures of the shirts. At first it was just the Mr. Krabs one, and then more recently it was the Plankton shirt. But besides these two images that exist online, I've never seen one physically ever appear online, or any other images of them appear online. So until I see one open to the public, or I have one in my hand, I'm gonna say those are kind of lost. The next one here is for the SpongeBob Topps trading card game. This card right here is the sketch card done by Paul Tibbet and was randomly inserted into random booster packs with a chance of pulling this card. But these particular packs were only available at Target. So the booster boxes that were available everywhere else at card stores and any other location didn't even have a chance of pulling these sketch cards. Specifically, just those ones that were at Target had that chance. So you've already narrowed it down to a pretty small amount of cards that even exist. And in the time I've had this card, I've heard little murmurings and had discussions with other collectors that were collecting during this time, and said that there was not only a SpongeBob variation of this card, but supposedly there exists a Patrick and even a Squidward variation of this sketch card. But since I'd never seen one, I just thought maybe it was something that could exist or could not exist, until I found this image of a Squidward card that actually existed from a listing on eBay from years back. And thank goodness somebody documented that image of Squidward, because that's the only picture online. And since there's that Squidward one now that exists, it adds so much more credibility to all the other things that I'd heard about there being a Patrick one. So since there's no images of the Patrick one, as of right now, it would just be lost media. But I do like to believe that there's somewhere out there a Patrick and another Squidward sketch card, and maybe we might be able to get it. But I would say of the sketch cards, maybe 1 out of the 10 would be a Squidward or a Patrick, and the majority would be SpongeBob. Of an already scarce card, I don't even really know how unlikely it would be for the Patrick or the Squidward to ever turn up again, but I'm still crossing my fingers. That's just a couple lost items. I hope you guys enjoyed them. I try to pick some fun ones. Thank you again to L Supersonic Q for letting me come on the channel here and share this stuff with you guys. I had a blast and would love to do it again sometime.
And finally, we'll end with a little found media from behind the scenes. This is not the biggest find ever, and I don't really think anyone considered trying to find photos of this, but when they resurfaced, a lot of people did tell me about them. And it's always nice getting some rare production content that we otherwise never would have seen. In August of 2024, only around a year ago, SpongeBob composer Steve Belfer made a video that compiled images from the photo shoot of Bikini Atoll, the iconic island that is seen in the opening of the cartoon, as well as throughout the series. The video starts with Steve recollecting the time when Steven Hillenburg asked to film something in his pool, that something being the large island scene itself, and proceeds to show a collection of photos that were taken from the day this happened. Not only is it mind-blowing just to see the physical production process of how such a legendary scene from the show was made, but it's also meaningful and sentimental to see this day documented as well as it was. These were just a bunch of guys making something that no one knew would take off like it did, and in a lot of these pictures, you can just see the passion for creation. It reminds me a lot of the photos that were uncovered during the search for Nintendo's lost livestream, Slamfest 99. The amount of personal documentation that exists in those images is something that cannot be matched by publicity photos. The description of the video even states that Steve has always felt like SpongeBob